So, well, first of all, this is a bit of a surprise. I'm doing this on location from the Best Western Plus in Roseville, California. But I wanted to, and the reason I'm here is because, as I've mentioned before, it's my nephew's wedding. So by the time you watch this, the wedding will have already been done, and I will be home and everything. Or at least on the reception, depending on when I decide to put this up. But anyway, I wanted to come on here because recently, I've been talking about, well, I wouldn't say recently, but occasionally I've been talking about, basically why certain mothers of Archie Sonic are looked at as some of the most requested, as we put it, MILFs, if you will, in the fandom. And that's no lie. Obviously we know about Vanilla in the overall franchise being the most popular MILF, not just in Archie Sonic, but also IDW Sonic, as well as in, other Sonic media like Sonic X, Sonic, any kind of Sonic that she's a part of, she is looked at as a very, very popular, very requested MILF, if you will. But, with that said, the other two I talked about were, of course, Bernadette Hedgehog, who is Sonic's mom in the Archie Sonic books, and Alicia Acorn, who is Sally's mom in the Sally Acorn's mom, Princess Sally Acorn. That is her mom, Alicia Acorn, Queen Alicia, in the Archie Sonic books as well. But did you know there's another? And this one is kind of unique in their history. Because depending on how you view her in the books, in the Archie books, especially later on when the Council of Acorn was created and all that, there is no doubt that a lot of fans have viewed her as pretty much a MILF that folks would love to, really get their hands on and really play around with creatively. Not just writing-wise, but artistically. And that, of course, is the mother of Miles Tails Prower himself, Rosemary Prower. And she has a very unique history, I'll put it that way. And what I mean by unique, like I said, is she, like, her husband, and just like Tails' big bro parents, Bernadette and Jules, back in the early days, according to the Archie Sonic books, she was roboticized. She was roboticized and pretty much made into a robotic slave until she and Amadeus, the father of Tails and her husband, were rescued by an alien race called the Beam. That's B-E-M. And what they did upon rescuing them is test out a little experiment that they had, and that experiment was de-robotization. But because they had basically teleported them to the planet, and, long story short, had no way of getting them back home, basically, Amadeus and Rosemary stayed there until they had an encounter with Sonic post 125, in the arc Sonic in Space, before he came back home. Not only was Sonic able to figure out, oh my gosh, this is where they're at, and they're still alive, but he was able to give them, the opportunity to send a message to Tails to let him know, hey, we're still here, we still love you, and we're still hoping to be with you one day. Well, that day came a lot sooner than they thought, because thanks to Tails' uncle, Merlin Prower, who is a wizard, the Master Emerald, at least one of the Chaos Emeralds, contributed by Knuckles, and basically a Power Ring, I think contributed by Sonic, they were able to activate some kind of a spell that allowed, teleportation spell I should say, that allowed them to travel to the world of the Beam, or the BEM, depending on how you pronounce it. Well, it's in the middle of a war, but at the same time were able to basically discover Tails' parents who was there in the middle of it trying to survive. And basically, by the grace of God, or Aurora, which is their god in that world, they were able to, rescue them and bring them back. Now, with that said, as I mentioned, she has had an interesting history. Because, of course, being very supportive of Amadeus, she wanted to basically see something be done about the royal family. And what she wanted to see be done was the royal family kind of not necessarily give up their power, but kind of be more governmental. In other words, be a monarchy that listened to the people and also took the advice of the people, which is represented by council. And she learned all this, her Amadeus, learned all this, when they were on the BEMS or Beams planet. So, long story short, they were able to work out some kind of an agreement where this happened, and she became one of the initial inaugural members. Now, did she still have a bit of a, I guess you could say, agenda with the royal family? In a sense, yes, but not really. You see, more along the lines, I believe, she's just, in my belief, is Rosemary was putting up a front because she did not want to make it seem, too obvious that she kind of understood why the royal family still kind of, I guess you could say, took charge and did what they had to do. Now, as far as her being a MILF, well, let's put it this way. It wouldn't be until long after the book was done. Now, it could have happened during the book as well. That's not, there's no evidence, I should say, that doesn't point to that. But it seems more than ever since the book was done, unfortunately, because of behind-the-scenes reasoning, Rosemary became one of the more sought-after MILFs in the Sonic fandom creativity-wise. Whether it was fan fiction, webcomics, you name it. And it didn't matter who they placed her with. There are stories where she's actually, in fact, there's one story, I should say, there's one story, as a matter of fact, where she, is actually, how do I put this? She's actually having a very passionate, intimate encounter with Queen Alicia Acorn herself. And there are also other examples, artistically and storytelling-wise, where she is actually, getting intimate with Sonic's mom from the archetype, Bernadette, as well as with Vanilla and so on. But what's interesting though is the guys she ends up with. Now, you would think, well, Sonic's an obvious choice, which is true. Stories and artistically, animation, you name it. That is evidence. There is no doubt. But outside of Sonic, outside of maybe Elias Acorn, Sally's brother in the Archie book, outside of her own husband, there is one person that she loves being a MILF for. One character. And it's a very instinctual, reasoning. And that character, of course, is Kale. She basically, depending on the stories that she's put in, are, comic-wise, animation-wise, fanfic-wise, she is put into such crazy, unique scenarios that it is not funny. It is not. It is not funny whatsoever. As a matter of fact, there's a story that was done by Zero the Fox over at fanfiction.net. It's a story that obviously he did not bring over to archiveofourOwn.org. But in this story, called The Adventures of Miles and the Wives of Mobius, Miles is basically sleeping, if you will, having intimacy, if you will, NFSW wife-wise, with all of the wives, or would-be wives, of some of the main male characters. And that even includes characters like Sally and Buddy and so on. But there's one. But during the story though, you know, throughout it, I should say, Rosemary starts to get this temptation. Like she's curious as to why Tails is going off and doing all these things. You know, she kind of has an idea, but not really. She has an idea, but not really. But it's during this story that her little subplot stuff is coming into play, because she starts yearning, just like all the other women that, wives, if you will, that Tails has been with. In the story, she starts yearning for her own son. Because in the story, Amadeus, she's still married to him, is more focused on his job as a general, if you will, a leader of the army. That he basically, neglects, the wants of his wife. So, long story short, the lustful side of her mind kicks in and says, Tails, basically the lustful side of her mind kicks in and says to her, and basically convinces her to say, Tails is going to be yours. You're going to bed Tails. You're going to mate with Tails. And that's exactly what happens. Even though there's that small portion of her mind that's saying, don't do this, it's not right, she still goes on and does it. And that's not the only time. There's another story. I don't know if it's part of the chapter series as well. I think it was. It was a scene in another series, if you will. Another story series, if you will. And, in the story series, Tails is dating Sally. But basically in the series, Amadeus is away on a mission. He's away with the army, the Royal Guard. And he basically put Tails in charge of the house, basically made him the man of the house. And what happened is that Rosemary, feeling distraught, saddened that Amadeus is not there to be with her, this gets noticed by Tails, and he comforts her. He comforts her, but during that comfort, she starts doing something that even surprises him. She starts kissing him on the cheek, and then as she's kissing him on the cheek, she starts kind of going around his face, basically tenderly kissing his cheek and everything until she reaches his lips. And that's when it kind of shocks Tails, until Rosemary kind of explains that, she has this itch, and she needs it scratched, if you will. And everything that Amadeus' dad told him, starts coming flooding back. Like, you need to take care of your mother while I'm gone. You're the man of the house. And basically to Tails, he starts kind of basically believing and convincing himself that even means doing the nasty with his mom. And that's what happens. Now, fortunately, though, the difference between this encounter and the encounter that he has with his mom, where she's the one that wants to get at him, she's the one that wants to mate with him. The difference here is that when they get close to their moment, you know what I mean? They get close to the moment, Rosemary, pulls off. She pulls off and she lets the release of Tails, if you will, the release that Tails has, let's say, erupt behind her and on her backside. Well, unlike in the other one, where she is basically, wanting him for her own, she does not get up. She basically lets him explode within her, if you know what I mean. Basically causing a potential of pregnancy. But yeah, Rosemary, I'll put it this way, when it comes to being one of the third most requested and the third most popular MILF in the overall Sonic franchise, fourth I should say, fourth most popular MILF in the Sonic franchise, along with Vanilla, along with Bernadette, along with Alicia. When it comes to her, Yeah, you can put her with anybody you want, you know, male or female. But it seems the popular pairing, the most popular pairing is her and Kate. And that isn't a lot. There are stories even where she gets convinced by, you know, her friends, like Bernadette Fitzlog, that it's all right to want to be with your son because, hey, that's sometimes how nature works. But overall, outside of that, you know, all you have to do is look online at places like inkbunny.net, furfitting, fanfiction.net, you name it, Deviant, you know, Pal Comics, you know, you name it. And you will find, stories and, you know, animation and artistic work, webcomics that showcase everything I talked about when it comes to Rosemary. But guys, let me know what your thoughts are. Do you think everything I've mentioned does kind of factor into how Rosemary is portrayed? What are your thoughts? Love to hear from each and every one of you on this. Live chat during the premiere. My super chats are open. If you want to go donate that way, it'd be greatly appreciated. Also, check out my Teespring store for merchandise you can't get anywhere else. And also, you will see an audio version of this down the line on my VW Roses Discussions podcast. But guys, give me your thoughts. You know, do you agree with what I said? Have any of you read or seen, you know, these stories, or read and seen these webcomics, animations, artwork that I've mentioned that displays Rosemary Prower, Tales of Florence and Archie books in this manner? Let me know, guys, down below in the comments section. Love to hear from you guys. And until then, I am signing off from the Best Western Plus in Roseville, California. Let me know what your thoughts are, guys, and